Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. And check out our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. And check out our Altar Sleeves. Support the show by using the code MAGICMICS at checkout for 5% off anything in the store. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hey, guys.
Ruben Bressler.
What's up? How's it going?
We're making our way through September 2021.
That's right. Making our way. And yeah, it's weird. This has been a weird month because some things, it feels like things are open and then some things aren't. So this is like a weird nebulous in between phase, but I also like the changing of the seasons in Southern California. So that's been nice.
Wait, what? I'm from Southern California. What are you talking about?
So we're going from fire season to just vaguely hot season.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just making sure from someone from Southern California that has moved up to like Portland, Washington area where there's like, leaves and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was just very confused.
We have seasons too. We just skip the bad ones.
Right. So we went from hurricanes to hell. So that's where we're at down here in Florida. We also begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most eloquent in letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 Jumpstart Historic Horizons cards. Ruben?
Well, this week's comment is eloquent. It is also extravagant. There was a period of time where I was always picking the longest comment, and this is a very long comment, but it was also very good. Written by Zenjin Vane on our YouTube, who writes, I'm surprised that you got so close to saying the card that I'm going to suggest as a missed card. Ruben kept getting my hopes up whenever they would stay by saying that it sees play in older formats like Modern and Legacy. Then I got my hope up when Evan said that his last card is 3 mana. And I was like, this has to be what they haven't said yet. But sadly, it was not. The card is Archmage's Charm. Sure, the floor is a cancel or an instant speed divination, and a sorcery speed divination is on the list with Muldrifter, or a 1 CMC mind control to take Mana Dorks or Esper Sentinel or DRC. But the upside is the same with all charms, is that it's flexible in doing any of the 3 options. Using MTG Goldfish numbers, it sees play in 225 decks across 10 archetypes, and has, according to their commonly played cards in Historic, it's the number 1 Jumpstart Historic card with 17% of the metagame. For comparison, Unholy Heat is the second most played with 15%, and those are the only 2 Jumpstart Historic cards to break into the top 50.
Wow.
Coming in with the good stats and earning yourself an honorable mention.
When I was going through the set and picking out my 10, I accidentally ended up with 11 and had to make a cut. And that was my cut. And the only reason was because it didn't feel like I could come up with something fun or exciting to say about it. It's just a good card that sees a ton of play. But this definitely made like my official list that had to get slimmed. So yeah, this is a great comment. I love this.
Absolutely.
Archmage's Charm, for those who don't know, is 3 blue mana for a rare instant that says choose 1 counter target spell, target player draws 2 cards, or gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost or mana value these days of 1 or less. This card is totally sweet. I loved it. I definitely searched out plain Jumpstart Historic Horizons on Arena, trying to get the blue pack so I could get my playset of Archmage's Charm, because the card is absolutely fantastic, and you're 100% right. It certainly deserves a spot. Thanks so much to Zenjin Vane, one of the coolest names I've ever heard in my life.
It's a good one.
Please contact us on social media for your prize. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway, and stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate, because it's time to talk about Innistrad Midnight Hunt, which I have been really surprised by how cool and fun some of the cards have been, which I'm sure we're going to talk about some of them, but some of the interactions between them, the limited format is really nice, particularly when you come from AFR, which had one of the most imbalanced formats I've played since Magic 2013 or whatever weirdness, when mono blue was just better than every other color, not close. Well, red black is better than every other combination, not close. And that kind of sucked. And I'm seeing less of that and more balance in the new set.
Yeah, agreed. Everything seems playable. Everything seems cool. The archetypes feel different and interesting from what we've done in recent memory. And I'm looking forward to having this be our new life with both limited and standard.
Yeah, I think you're right about AFR being red black just being hands down the best and it being really repetitive to play against, especially on arena, spamming drafts. I will say I do think black is again just hands down the best color after having done my set review. And I have a feeling that like if you're not in black, you're pretty sad. It is it's got half of the like 5 out of 5 cards. It's just
the rares are great.
Definitely the best card in limited or
the
best color in
removals,
limited, hands down.
Yeah.
The rules fantastic. When you look at this, what statistics I've seen is that like basically the top 5 archetypes are all black and X, right? It's just whatever the like combinations are.
Yeah. The nice thing is though, is that it supports a lot of different archetypes, right? It's got the black-red vampires. It's got the black-white humans for sacrifice. It even has a green-black graveyard synergy. So even though it's got the best cards hands down, they don't all belong in the same deck. So your black is kind of split across a bunch of different players doing a bunch of different things, which will kind of, I think, mellow it out a bit.
All right. Well, that said, let's get started with our number 10. I don't get started because mine's higher on someone else's list, but that's okay. This card is fantastic. I'm excited to talk about it when we get to it. Ruben, what's your number 10?
My number 10 is on my list. I'm not sure I've ever cast it or will ever cast it, but it's on my list for one very important reason, and that's because it's named Jack-O-Lantern. And that's amazing. Jack-O-Lantern is a generic mana for an artifact. It has 2 abilities. Pay a colorless tap, sacrifice it, exile up to 1 card from a graveyard, draw a card. And it also has pay a generic mana and exile it from your graveyard to add 1 mana of any color. So this is a very interesting card. I actually could see this in, it sort of does like what an egg does in an eggs strategy, but also fixes your mana if you mill it or something like that. It's a very interesting, cool kind of idea for a very cheap kind of artifact, but also this art is spectacular. I almost put the 1/1 human token where the guy's holding the Jack-O-Lantern above his head on my list, but I decided the Jack-O-Lantern with the Avacyn symbol as the nose.
Yeah, that's really pretty.
Just
that's
all
cool.
of the big stuff that's happening in this art. I just love it.
I mean, it turns out they make Jack-O-Lanterns on Innistrad. We didn't know that, I guess, officially, kind of, sort of. And this is what they do. It's kind of a weird card that is like, I guess you could more or less have the Jack-O-Lantern do whatever you wanted it to do, right? Like, it's just mysterious.
Yeah.
Jazz hands. Nerd Girl, what's number 10?
All right. So I did, take a limited perspective for my top 10.
Sure.
Surprise. So this card I actually like a ton because I feel like it fits really well into the overall theme of Innistrad, as well as the theme for the color it's in. It's not overpowered. I mean, it is a mythic, but the set doesn't seem to have a ton of like, I play this, I instantly win kind of cards. And this fits really well. And I think that makes for fun magic. So it's going to be Sigardian Savior.
Ooh.
It is a 3/3 flyer for 5 mana, 3 white. It is an angel that flies. And when it enters the battlefield, if you've cast it, return up to 2 target creatures with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And this is one of the widest formats we've seen in many, many years. There's a lot of go wide payoffs. And because of that, we have a ton of very powerful low creatures that are going to be getting you a ton of recursion value. And it's just like everything white wants to do. Including cards like, something simple like Cathar Commando, which is just, destroy target artifact or enchantment. It's a little flash 3/1 for 2. Getting that back after it removes something is just such great value. And I'm excited to play cards like this.
Yeah, this card is super sweet. This is one of those cards that, like, from now on, at least certainly until it rotates, and maybe even after that, you go, okay, what cards are mana value 2 or less that if you bring them back immediately are awesome. But in the limited format, what I found, or at least in my initial findings for the format, which is you need good early game, but you need good late game. And so you got to have a 2-drop on turn 2, but you also need to do something on turn 6 and 7, or you're just going to die. So getting those cool 2-drops back with this girl, like, there's a reason she's mythic, basically.
Yeah.
And that sounds like why.
She is only a 3/3, so she'll die to most of the red removal and all the black removal, clearly. So she's not winning you the game on her own. She's a little unexciting herself for a mythic. So if you don't have the good synergy and curve filling stuff, it's not going to quite get you there, but it's still a great card.
Yeah.
Also an excellent card, I believe, in Commander. the commander players are falling in love with this card because there's a lot of strategies that want to recur, lots of little value creatures, and do the karmic guide thing, and just like black white aristocrats kind of decks. This is exactly what you want.
And plus, it's an angel,
and it's an angel. Exactly, it'll be $1 million regardless.
There's angel people. There's angel people, like there's dragon people, like there's zombie people, and they just will go nuts over whatever the new thing happens to be. So for my number 9, as we move on here, I get to share one. Yay. I love it when Wizards kind of sets precedents, when they create spells that you go like, whoa, that is a new paradigm. We have figured out a new way to do something that, provides some amount of additional value you weren't expecting, but also was able to balance itself out a little bit. Path to Exile, for example, that was another sort of, there's a watershed moment of like, oh my God, like we can have 1 white mana removal, exile target creature, and this is what you have to do for it. Well, now we can basically Doom Blade anything, including planeswalkers, as long as we give them a clue with Fateful Absence, which is one of the best, cleanest, sweetest removal spells I've ever seen. There's a reason this isn't called like Sorin's Absence or something. I do believe they want to put this in different sets moving forward because it's super cool, super great. Fateful Absence is a white and generic mana for a rare instant that says destroy target creature or planeswalker, period. That's a planeswalker, period. That's a creature or planeswalker, period. No mana values, no rules, just dead. And its controller investigates, which means they make a colorless clue token with 2 generic mana, sack it to draw a card. This thing is just terrific. It's just good up and down. This is the best, piece of removal you're probably going to have in the standard format, certainly until a set or 2 goes by. This is a new watershed of what a removal spell can be.
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that it's mono white is also a huge deal.
Yeah.
The fact that you can run this in your mono white aggressive strategies without having to bother with splashing is something that we've never really seen before, or seen at least since Declaration in Stone. But Declaration in Stone couldn't get rid of planeswalkers, and it was also sorcery speed. Right. So sorry. Yeah. So this is a huge deal.
Yeah, that card's really good, even in limited. It was one of the biggest cards that people were super hyped about. And this is just not the type of removal that you see from white. It's pretty uncommon to get something that is cheap, efficient, and instant speed for sure, that white actually gets to use. A lot of people are like, oh, but they can replace it, so it's like super weak in comparison to some of the other removal. But white doesn't care, right? Like, we're going fast, we're going wide. We just need to remove your stuff, and then you lose the game.
Yeah. I mean, I would sort of put it this way, right? What you're doing is you're soaking up 2 of their mana, at some point additionally later. So that's 2 mana of theirs gone. And 40% of the time, you just replace their big threat thing, planeswalker or creature, with a land. So I'll flip that coin every day. Like, here, spend more mana. Hope you get nothing. Thank you. Yeah.
This is memory lapse. Like, it's not terror. But it's memory lapse. If you look at it as a tempo play, this is one of the best, if not the best, white tempo spells ever created.
Ever. Ruben, what's number 9?
My number 9 is a card that I got the pleasure of playing with in limited, and I'm interested to see if the ridiculousness that it felt like this card was in limited could translate over to constructed, because I just had a delightful time playing with Florian Voldaren Scion. Colorless black red for a 3/3 first strike, so 3 mana for 3/3 first strike, vampire noble, legendary creature. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponents lost this turn. Exile one of those cards and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may play that card, the exiled card, this turn. So this card, it's better and worse than drawing a card every turn, but it's also on just a 3/3 first strike, right? And because the Rakdos archetype is having dealt your opponent's damage already with your vampires, they're sucking your blood out. I was able to look at the rest of my library a couple times with this card. I was not putting it on top of my deck. Playing it that turn is a huge deal.
Yeah, this card is bananas. I played against this thing in a constructed deck, and when it starts going off, it gets really scary because you have to stop it, or it just steamrolls you over as these types of cards are wont to do. The X is amazing. You get such like the first strike also just provides that weird combat problem of who to block and when. Do they have a burn spell on top of it to completely blow out my blocks? Like Florian is sweet. This card is very strong.
Yeah, I love that this card fits really well with the synergy that Vampires wants to do. A 3/3 for 3 is already, pretty decent rate and limited, and it's going to be tough to block if you're on the play. But even if you're on the draw, the first strike makes it nearly impossible to block and kill without chump blocking it. And then it synergizes so well with most of the Vampire cards in the format that need your opponent to have lost life to get their bonus triggers when they ETB. So it's just very, very well put together as far as like an overall archetype lord.
Yeah, and it gets you any card. Like it can get you lands, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, I need to hit a land. There's a land. Exile play. Like this card is dope. I assure you. Maybe we're still looking for the shell, but it's out there somewhere. Card's sweet. Nerd Girl, what's number 9?
So my number 9 is a little bit unexciting. It actually has a fair amount of text, but I don't feel like it's necessarily important for a limited. And that is just because it is a big, dumb beater that's going to kill people. It is the Lord of the Forsaken. It is a 4 colorless black for a 6/6 flying trampler. That right there is going to kill people all by itself, even if it does nothing else. But it's going to dodge all of the red removal. And I don't know that the rest of the text is going to be super important because I don't know how people are going to deal with it. But if need be, you can pay 1 black to sacrifice another creature and mill up to 3 cards, which you can mill your own to hit your disturb or your flashback cards, or you can just mill them out if you have a lot of token generation. Or you can pay 1 life to get a colorless mana to recast things from your graveyard, which can also be pretty relevant in that mid to late game when we have so much graveyard synergy.
When your baseline is a 6 mana, 6/6 flample, I mean, ham sandwich on the rest of it. I'm probably going to be pretty happy to slam this one in my limited deck every single time. Yes. The pay 1 life thing, and there's that there's the X spell, or I guess there's the what's the one from Amonkhet? The ribbons, is that right? Cut to ribbons.
Oh, cut to ribbons.
Right.
Yeah,
so ribbons, you can pay X life for this and yada yada. Like there's a bunch of cool little combos in there, but again, part of it's like, once you have a 6 mana 6/6 trampler, do you need to do that? Like maybe, I don't know, but like I love me a big dumb monster mythic, and this is great.
Yeah, I definitely think that last ability of pay 1 life, get mana for free is
dangerous.
Gonna surprise people. It's very dangerous. Obviously not super relevant in like limited, where a 6/6 is gonna, even a 6/6 with no abilities is gonna rule the roost. Right. But certainly pay 1 life, add a colorless, play anything from your graveyard is just gonna send this card through the roof long term.
There's going to be that like weird vintage interaction or whatever of like, I just need something that lets me pay life to play this out of my graveyard. And so this card will be like a cool commander card until it shoots up to $50 because someone found an interaction you didn't think about.
Yeah.
Damn. Let's move on to number 8. Nerd Girl, what's number 8?
So my number 8 is a card that I think is both great and limited, and it's actually seeing a fair amount of constructed play as well. And that is Burn Down the House. For 3 colorless, red is a sorcery. You can choose 1. Burn Down the House either deals 5 damage to each creature and planeswalker, which is super relevant, or you can choose this mode where you get 3 1/1 devil tokens, where when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. They gain haste until end of turn. The thing I like the most about this is that it removes all of the downside in limited to having these sort of board clears, because oftentimes you'll have them and they're, you can play around them. They're a nice like emergency reset button. But also if your foot is on the gas, then this is just, 3 1/1s that can shoot and trigger with haste is pretty powerful. So it is a rare, so it's definitely worth it, and it's costed appropriately, I think. But I love the flexibility of it.
Well, luckily the tokens do not have haste. I don't think so, but because it's good enough anyway. Like do they not? I don't think so. It says 3 devil tokens. Oh, they gain haste. Oh my God, you're right. Oh my jeez, this card's ridiculous. They gain haste till end of turn. You're totally right. I was wrong. This card is even better than I thought it was. This is like Hour of Devastation plus. This is the best Hour of Devastation ever made. This is the first far as I know, only board wipe where it literally has 2 modes. If you're winning, do this. If you're losing, do that. Like, it's real clear.
Yeah.
What you're supposed
Well,
to
the
do.
only there is a board wipe that has 2 modes, but it's like austere command or crux of fate.
Yeah.
So it's like either board wipe or also board wipe. This is the first time it's been like board wipe or add to the board.
Or increase your board presence and your threat level or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, holy cow.
Yeah.
This thing is nuts. And this is a good example of like the paradigm. What world of Magic are we living in? The world of Magic that says your rare is literally doing both things at the same time. And that's a lot. Goodness.
I saw it in Constructed with Ren in 7. And you can play Ren on 5, make the dude, and then cast this on 6. Your dude survives, and you get in for a bajillion.
Wow!
And that was pretty tough to deal with.
Wow! Yeah, this card is very impressive. Ruben, what's number 8?
My number 8 is interesting fact about my number 8. It's right behind me. You can see right over my shoulders the antlers hiding in the shadows, being creepy, being terrifying, being old stick fingers. X black green gets you a legendary creature horror that's a star. When you cast this spell, reveal from the top of your library until you reveal X creature cards. Put all the creature cards revealed in this way into your graveyard and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Old stick fingers power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So it's a huge, enormous beater in any limited deck because most of your deck is, 17 creatures or whatever. It has combo potential because you could just go X equals 1 and have only 1 creature in your deck. I'm sure there's a combo there somewhere where you just reveal your, some sort of weird Nahiri, Emrakul something.
Right.
And oh, by the way, you can just play it for 2 mana. Like you can just play it for 2 mana if there's creatures that are dead already. So this card is super cool.
I feel like in limited, I'm more likely to just cast this for 2 mana, even if like there's a low creature count, because I just don't want to mill half my creatures. And it gets better over time, which I love. It's a great rate. The card's definitely super sweet. And there's a ton of cards in the format that synergize well. Like when they ATB, just mill 3 cards, which like helps you get your disturbed. So I feel like the rest of the text on him is kind of irrelevant because it's not giving me any additional bonus. But it's definitely a nice option to have. It's
one of those cards, like I played against a deck that played with this and Constructed. They were trying to do, the graveyard mill yourself thing. And it was cool because what happened, sort of over time is that the first one you cast, not that great, might mill 1 or 2, okay. But like every time he drew more of them, the stick fingers would get bigger and bigger. So they would just replace the other one or, just go to the graveyard or whatever. But the ability kept feeding the one that you have on the board. So it was really interesting. And then you have that like until you reveal X creature cards, until you reveal something, oh boy, that's dangerous. That's scary. Now look, it could be you reveal your other stick fingers or whatever, but it could be the other 1 creature card that you're hoping to hit and put in your graveyard for whatever reason. Right. Wow. Yeah, there's some weird yet scary text wording on this.
The wording on the card says that this could do Hermit Druid things, right? Like it could, because you could just reveal your entire library. It doesn't put it into your graveyard. That's actual Hermit Druid. Right. But there is a way to finagle this in some way to go crazy combo. Again, another one that we'd have to dig around and figure out what the combo is, but it's there.
Right. This is the one feels like you would run 2 copies of this and make sure that X always equals 2. So you would mill maybe the 1 stick fingers and then the one that you're looking for or whatever. Right. But yeah, this is a card very scary. Very scary. Speaking of very scary, I love it when cards surprise me. There's nothing that sort of delights me more than when I see somebody play something and I go, wait, I thought that card wasn't oh my God, I am dying because this card is incredible. And that happened to me directly after I played against Reckless Stormseeker. This card is ridiculous. It's a red and 2 generic mana for a 2/3 rare human werewolf. Okay. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains haste until end of turn. Whoo boy, that H word's important. So this is at worst a 3 mana 3/3 haste. Hold on. It transforms as with Daybound, meaning if a player casts no spells during their own turn, you flip it over into a 3/4 that at the beginning of your combat gives target creature +2/+0 and gains trample and haste until end of turn. And my God, is that scary. And you can play this in the Werewolves deck. You can play this in Red Deck Wins. I have played it in both, and it is very, very sweet. This card is going to be all over because like once it starts with the value and every creature you play thereafter gets haste and a bonus. Oh my God, it just goes out from nowhere. It just freaking runs with the thing. It's crazy.
Even if this didn't do anything else other than target itself, it's a 3/3 haste on one side and a 5/4 haste trample on the other side. Even if it did nothing else, but for the rest of the game, everything else, everything you play, you get to choose, you get a mark of haste on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's insanely powerful.
It is very good. I've seen it in both limited and constructed, and it was not easy to deal with on either side.
Yeah, this card was just unreasonable. I was like, wow, okay, cool. But then when it flipped and I saw it gave the trample, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And that's exactly what happened. And I went and crafted my 4 copies immediately and then built a red-green werewolf deck because it was sweet. All right.
Nice.
Let's move it over here to number 7. Ruben, what's your number 7?
Number 7, I don't have a ton of cards that are for limited, but I needed to shout this one out because I won a bunch of games with it. I espoused the virtues of Larder Zombie on the show of the live show, but I wanted to talk about Siege Zombie, which is like the win condition for that deck. Colorless and a black for a 2/2 zombie. It's a common. Tap 3 untapped creatures you control. Each opponent loses 1 life. Getting value out of those decayed creatures is tough sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
But the tap 3 creatures you control, do things without your decayed idiots dying, huge deal.
Yeah.
Definitely.
This card has reach, as it were.
Yeah.
It's coming to get you.
Yeah. I mean, especially because you can get into these standstill situations where everyone's got a bunch of tokens. They don't want to start the ground war. They don't want to get in there because you can make profitable blocks and they can make profitable blocks. This allows you to chip away. And it's great.
Yeah, it forces them to make a move that often will put them like at a disadvantage on the board state for sure, because they have to do something, or they're wasting their removal on your like 2/2 for 2, which is also very not exciting.
Yeah.
What is your number 7, Nerd Girl?
All right. So my number 7 is a card that at first glance, it doesn't look very good because it dies super easy, but I've been really impressed with how often we're doing the day-night shifts. I thought it might have been a little bit less just because it was like more of an overall board state thing, but no, it's still flipping a lot. And that is the Sunstreak Phoenix.
Ooh.
And that is a 2 red 4 mana for a Phoenix that is a 4/2 flyer. If it becomes day, if it is neither day nor night when it enters the battlefield. And whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, you may pay 2 if you do return it to the battlefield. From the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. It is a 4/2. And I was a little not super excited just because there is, 5 red removals that kill this, including just a generic shock. But, day night flipping a lot and it coming back for only 2 mana seems like a heck of a bargain.
Go ahead.
The only opportunity, I mean, it dies easily.
Yes.
But also it comes back easily. Like there's a lot of Phoenixes that it's very difficult to get into a situation to bring them back. And you need to like craft your deck to do it. All the Sunstreak Phoenix asks of you is to do nothing.
Skip your turn.
That is all. Yeah. Or not even skip your turn. Have instants in your deck.
Right. Have instants say go.
Have
Pay 2 mana.
instants say go.
Get your Phoenix back.
Sunstreak Phoenix back. Yeah, this card's great.
This card seems fantastic because, and I've seen it myself when I played, with it, and against it in limited, where I was just like, you literally just have to say go to get your 4/2 back, like continuously, whether you're sacrificing to stuff for value or whether it's dying because they keep using the removal on it, or you're chump blocking there, whatever. It's important that it comes and play tap. And it's important that it doesn't have haste because otherwise this thing would probably be completely out of control. There's a reason this has 2 toughness, I think is a way to put that.
Definitely.
Because you can just get it right back. Well, speaking of 2 mana and 2 mana that does stuff, my God, when Wizards makes 2 mana mythic creatures, I'm always a little scared. because they're usually unbelievably powerful and sweet. And it turns out that these cards, my next two cards, are very powerful and very sweet. Certainly not the last of this cycle that you'll hear from me about. But, oh boy, have you played Intrepid Adversary? Intrepid Adversary is not a fair Magic the Gathering card. This thing is bananas. It is a white and a generic mana for a mythic 3/1 human scout with lifelink. And whenever it enters the battlefield, that's whenever it enters the battlefield. That is not multi-kicker, everybody. That's whenever you blink it, whenever you pop it, whenever it comes back from the graveyard, whatever. You may pay 1 white and 1 generic mana any number of times. And you may pay this cost 1 or more. And when you pay it, you put that many Valor counters, and creatures you control get +1/+1 for each Valor counter on Intrepid Adversary. It just for 1 is not that bad, but the fact that this thing has lifelink is so ungodly important. It puts you right in front of the race. Your guys are now huge, and now they can't just swing back and kill you because you have a giant lifelink guy waiting on them. This card is bananas. I can't how good this card is.
Yeah, it's also important to note that there are multiple bounce spells in the format, and for limited purposes, it's got, there's multiple in blue. There's even a white hippogriff that ETB bounces something at flash speed, so they can't even exile this thing or kill it, and then they don't get rid of your anthem, and then you make it bigger. It's kind of busted. Definitely, especially in a format that is designed to go so wide.
Yeah, this thing is.
Yeah, this thing is good at 2, this thing's good at 4, this thing's good at 6, and this thing's good at 8. It's a 3/1. Remember when Blade of the Sixth Pride came out and people were like, ooh, 3/1 for 2 mana. Man, wild. We got 3/1 lifelink and glorious anthem now.
Multiple glorious anthems.
Yeah, it's absurd.
I can't. All right, look, and I can't with this guy, and I'm just going to roll it in number 6. Not the last adversary I'm talking about. Yeah. Because they kept going with another one. This one is arguably even more stupid because of various interactions. But let me tell you, I having gone this long with Arena and put so much money in the money hole, I have a decent historic collection. And my God, playing with Tainted Adversary in the full-blown balls to the wall zombie deck in historic is an absolute blast. This card is absolutely ridiculous. First of all, flat, it's a black and generic mana for a 2/3 Death Touch creature, right? 2 mana, 2/3 Death Touch. That's just good, clean living right there.
Yeah.
But it's a mythic zombie, so we ain't done. So this 2 mana, 2/3 Death Touch, when it enters the battlefield, you may pay a black and 2 generic mana any number of times. And when you pay this cost 1 or more times, you put that many +1/+1 counters on Tainted Adversary. Then you create twice that many 2/2 black zombie creature tokens with Decayed. So in a world with Champion of the Parish, with a world of Crypt Breaker, who can use those creatures just to draw cards with, in a world, there's so many awesome interactions that just come flying out of this card. It's crazy. Stuff you want to sacrifice, stuff you want to tap for, stuff you want to equip with, or stuff you want to equip a vehicle with or turn a vehicle on. There's just a whole variety of stupid interactions. This card is amazing.
Yeah, definitely does a lot, even in limited. I mean, if you don't have anything specific for the Decayed token, there's still just a bunch of generic sacrifice payoffs that'll just love to have these. And there's also a lot of really cool rare interaction with Pop Stitcher and things, and just random stuff. The Helm would be nuts with this card.
Yeah.
Granted, rare interactions, but just a ton of really fun things to do.
I mean, and also it's just a Grave Titan. Again, good at every mana cost. There's this cycle of 2 mana mythics is absurd. This one's no different. This is Josu Vess. This is everything you want out of a card to put into your zombie deck.
I mean, for 5 mana, you get 7 power and 8 toughness over 3 bodies with 3 zombies entering the battlefield that can trigger whatever's. Holy cow, that card is crazy good. Ruben, what's number 6?
My number 6 is a card that when I see it, I just die. There is nothing that can be done when my opponent plays a Consuming Blob.
Oops.
I cannot win anymore if my opponent has a Consuming Blob in their deck.
It's
3 colorless green gets you a ooze that has a power and toughness of star and star +1. Consuming Blob's power is equal to the number of card types among cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. And at the beginning of your end step, create a green ooze creature token. By the way, maybe the best token art I've ever seen, the Flubber art with the ooze coming out of the jar. At the beginning of your end step, create a green ooze token with this creature's power is equal to the number of card types among cards in your graveyard, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. This is just a Tarmogoyf that makes more Tarmogoyfs, and I can't win. There is no way for me to win. I am going to be consumed by the Blob.
Yeah, I played this. My very first sealed pool had this and the Helm, which was just the most busted sealed pool probably I've ever had. The one opponent managed to kill it on their turn. Now it's at end of turn, your end of turn, so you're pretty much guaranteed, as long as you play it in a moderately safe area, to get that second thing. They killed it right away, no problem. I still had this 3/2, which eventually became a 6/7. With cards like Evolving Wilds, it's not terribly difficult to make happen, and then that killed them anyway. So at the very least, it's a 2-for-1. It gets very strong very quickly, and yeah, I won literally every game that this was ever played.
It's Tarmoblob. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Tarmoblob that makes blob copies of Tarmogoyf, essentially, which is insane. Like, this card feels also, honestly, this card seems very cheap as of this recording for a couple bucks, like $2.50. Wouldn't be the worst idea to throw $20 at it, throw them in the closet, because like this card is crazy.
Well, just like Tarmogoyf, all it does is attack and block. That's it. That's how bad can it be?
It just makes more attacky blocky boys. Yeah. That's all it does. Little blobby boys.
Tacky blobby boys.
That's right.
The blobbiest boys of all. And I just
all
this card is great.
It attacks and it blobs. That's right.
I like it.
That's why he gets paid the big bucks, everybody.
Medium bucks.
Medium dollars. Nerd Girl. What's number 6?
So my number 6 is not a card I've seen yet, so I haven't played it or played against it, but it seems pretty sweet. I'm not really sure how to assess it quite right, but I think it's going to absolutely just obliterate limited board states, and that is Gissa, Glorious Resurrector. It's a legendary 4/4 for 4. 2 and a black, and if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. At the beginning of your upkeep, put all creatures exiled with Gissa, the Resurrector, onto the battlefield under your control. They gain Decayed. So like, you don't even have to spend the mana. Granted, they're Decayed tokens. That makes sense, but like, you're gonna get some powerful cards. You're gonna get ETB effects. You're gonna get so much value out of this. And unlike the one we saw in the previous set with the Frost Snowlands, where you could like pay mana to get their creatures, oftentimes you just didn't have the snow mana to do it, or you just didn't have enough mana, or whatever the case may be. This just puts them onto the battlefield, and holy smokes, is it going to change your board state really fast. I'm excited about this card.
This card is sweet.
That's a Draugr Necromancer. I was looking up what the card was that I was thinking this was similar to. And you're right. This is similar, but better in many ways. Not only, and one of the key ways is that, well, both of those cards just take cards out of your opponent's graveyard. And a lot of the decks, like the blue-green self-mill deck, the Consuming Blob deck, for example, and any of those decks that have zombies, there's a ton of ways to get creatures back from your graveyard to your hand. This just stops all of those interactions. Then for no mana, you just get their passive abilities, and then you can also just attack with them if you really need to. This card is unbelievable, extremely powerful. 4/4 for 4 is also just good enough by itself. Very cool card.
I think the only issue for me is that it doesn't give the creatures that you bring back haste. Like you still get them, they still have the battlefield abilities, they're still decayed and all. So you're not really necessarily have to attack with them that turn, right? You can just wait, and then the next turn they're still hanging around. So that's kind of cool. And this is also a legend, so it can be your commander. So this to me was like, hey, here's a really cool commander card. It's difficult to have these cards be very successful and constructed because there's just such a target on it. Like you're never, easily going to let them get this kind of trigger, let alone survive long enough to the next upkeep, let alone keep the decay token and yada, yada, yada. But this card is fantastic and I like it a lot. All right, let's move here to number 5. I somehow share, of all the cards in the set, of all the numbers to choose,
wow,
I share a number 5.
Me too.
Nice. That means we share it together. This card, for my take on this card, I loved this thing from the moment they showed it to us. They showed it to us very early. This card's very exciting. This card's very powerful. It only took, it takes, for me, generally, when it comes to big, crazy cards like this, I only have to play against them once, and then I go, oh my God, now I understand, right? I knew it was good. I knew it was sweet, but goodness gracious. Nerd Girl, tell me your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so this card, it's not quite as high on my list. If my list was constructed, I think that this would be a lot higher. For limited, I think it's a little bit more underpowered, and I'll tell you why after we go over the card, and that is the Wrenn and 7 Planeswalker.
Yeah.
Did you want to do it, or do you want me to do it?
I'll do it. It's fine.
Okay.
For 2 green, 3 generic mana, it's a 5 loyalty legendary planeswalker Wrenn. It's mythic, of course. +1, you reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You put all land cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. 0, you put any number of land cards from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. -3, you create a green treefolk creature token with reach, and quote, this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. And yes, the chariot can make more of those, and that's ridiculous.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And -8, return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. You get an emblem with quote, you have no maximum hand size. That -8 might as well probably be blank for all intents and purposes, because I've seen the first 3 abilities just go completely ham.
Sure.
Yeah.
Card seems very good. I've never seen it in play. But making a 5/5 that immediately becomes a 6/6 is huge. I definitely see why this is less. I mean, all planeswalkers are insane in limited. Let's get that out of the way first.
Right.
But I can definitely see why you'd be less high on this in limited.
Yeah. So my thing is that you actually can't. A lot of planeswalkers that we've been getting recently have been very watered down and give you a lot of long-term value. Draw a card, draw 2, put 1 back under, or whatever. So this one has a really big impact in the beginning, but fizzles out very quickly because you actually can't continue to mill yourself for 4 to make any more dudes. So this to me kind of reads like make 2 dudes or make a dude and then get killed. It does give reach, so it is a huge bomb. We're definitely playing this. It's going to win games, but it affects the board state right away, which is great for limited planeswalkers. That is really a key, but unlike a lot of the other ones, it just then stops doing anything. Yeah. Also, a lot of the other modes, like put lands into play, is going to be a lot less relevant in limited than it is in constructed, but it's still, again, in the top 10 cards of the set, so still really strong.
Yeah, like if you get the, you're gonna make the token, right? And then next turn you're gonna probably mill yourself for 10% of your library and feel a little sad. But then you get to make another token, and then yay, it made 2 crazy huge tokens. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Card's
yeah,
sweet.
I mean, and sometimes you have tapping on the window, or you have old stick fingers, and sometimes you have some other graveyard synergy that's fine. And then you don't feel terrible about milling yourself for 4. And then you get another tree, which is great.
There you go. Ruben, what's number 5?
My number 5 is a card that I feel like, speaking of like older cards that got legendary versions so that we could run them as our commanders, I feel like a lot of people were like, man, I really want to run, I just want Goblin Electromancer to be my commander. And we got it kind of in Vadric Astral Archmage. Colorless red-blue for legendary creature human wizard is a 1/2. If it's neither day or night, it becomes day as he enters the battlefield. Instants and sorcery spells cost X less to cast, where X is Vadric's power. Whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, put a +1/+1 counter on Vadric. This was not on my radar until I played it in Brawl. And my opponent played it and then passed the turn and then just played spells for free for the rest of the game. It was like, here's, draw 2 cards here's Hieroglyphic Illumination for 2 mana. Here's Counter Spell for 1 mana. And also here's deal your creature 1,000,000 damage for 3 mana, all in the same turn. And oh, by the way, this card becomes a 2/3, a 3/4, a 4/5 very quickly, very easily. Extremely powerful card.
Wow. Yeah, I played against this a little bit, and I was like, whoa, like, I never want to let them untap with this. And so my goal was to never let them untap with it, and I was playing a red deck at the time. And so they played 2 of this guy, I killed 2 of this guy, and then they lost because I knew you let somebody untap with this card, it's going to get ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in limited there is a spells deck that just wants this card. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, there's a blue-red spells deck that the spell with flashback that makes the token equal to the spells and stuff. That card is sweet. I had a couple blue-red decks that were really fun. Let's move on here to number 4. Ruben, what's number 4?
Earlier, Evan, you were setting up a card, and I was like, are you just talking about my number 4? Like, you were like, this is a 2-mana removal spell that kills everything for the low. It's a whole paradigm shift of what you can get for a 2-mana removal. And I'm just like, are you talking about my number 4? Because my number 4 is Infernal Grasp.
It's my number 10.
Yeah.
Which I feel like also just shifts the paradigm of what a removal spell is. It's your number 10?
Yes.
Awesome. Was it on your list or?
It was not on mine. I didn't put any removal on just because they're not as fun and flashy.
That's fair. Yeah.
So good removal.
Best removal. You know, this is some crazy removal.
Yeah, it's
colorless on a black instant, destroy target creature, you lose 2 life. That's the Thoughtseize drawback, and we all know how well that went. Yeah, so when you lose 2 life is the only drawback. It's instant speed, it's unconditional, it's 2 mana.
Yep.
What's 2 life between friends, you know?
That's a insane removal, easily first pickable in any limited format. And yeah.
I mean, this is the type of removal that goes in cubes. This is the type of removal that redefines removal. This is like Shocklands, right? Like Shocklands now say you can have 2 card types that enter the battlefield untapped as long as you pay 2 life. You can have literally destroy a creature, just period. Don't care what kind of creature. Don't care what kind of color it is. Don't care about the mana value. Like, just kill it if you can target it. Pay 2 life. That is amazing. Like that.
Yeah.
Like, this was my number 10. I definitely wanted to be on my top 10 list because I know it's just removal. It's just the best damn removal we've ever gotten for this mana cost. Like, Heartless Act was close, very close. What was the one destroyed non-legendaries? Something down.
Cast down.
Yeah, cast down, very close, right? But just never kill it. Just kill it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I'm a little less excited, so we're seeing the most premium removal, right? In white and in black. Like, you're right, we are redefining removal, but I think it is insanely amazing for constructed. But in limited, this is also the widest format where creatures come into play with, they make more smaller dudes, so their power itself is split across many bodies. There's a lot of recursion out of graveyards, so this premium removal is actually going to be far less impactful than any of the worst removal we've seen in previous sets.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, with all of the decayed zombies, with all of the interesting raised deads, with all of the ways
the angel comes back into play with 2 dudes, right? Things like that.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Right.
I mean,
in the format, may not be the greatest thing, as it were, but in terms of precedence setting, like,
yes,
how good a creature can be in standard, right? Like, they can make creatures amazing as long as you give them really good removal to answer whatever stupidness you got going on.
Right.
As far as standard, I feel like these are the removal spells that are going to be removing creatures from every other set from here on out for the rest of the format.
Yeah, sure. I would love it if this were Bone Crusher Giant. I would love that.
Yeah.
Because there's not a 4/5 body attached to this one. But yeah, this is exactly that. I mean, we've seen Doomblade and Terror in standards past.
Sure.
So I think that this is probably going to be right there.
Yeah, I mean, I played 4 Doomblade back in the day. Hell, I played Terror back in the day. Like, two mana black kill spells are awesome and cool and neat, but damn, have they never just said anything you want, any cost, any color, any type, artifact creature, no, just pay 2 life and you got it. That's amazing. Nerd Girl, what's number 4?
So my number 4 is one of a cycle we've seen a couple of times already talked about, and I think it is actually the best one of the cycle, and that is the Primal Adversary.
Nice.
This is that what are we calling it? The multiple kicker cost type thing.
It's multi-kicker without multi-kicker, basically.
Yeah, it's unofficial multi-kicker.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So the Primal Adversary is a 3 mana 4/3 trampler, 2 colorless and a green, which is already Super exciting in the tiny world of limited. And then you can, when it enters the battlefield, you can pay 1 and a green, so 2 mana as many times as you want. It gets that many +1/+1 counters on a trampler, plus turns that many lands into 3/3 wolves with haste. Holy smokes, you're going to play this in the late game and just kill somebody.
Yeah.
Because you're just like have 5 3/3 bodies that you were not expecting. This card's nuts and limited. I'm so excited. I cannot wait to play it. It is a mythic, which thank goodness. But yes, this card is fantastic.
So let me do some quick math. 3 mana gets you a 4/3 trampler.
Right.
5 mana plus the untapped land gets you a 5/4 trampler and a 3/3. So you're haste, right? So you're attacking for 8.
Right.
Then 5, 6,
For
3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana plus 2 untapped lands gets you a 6/5 trampler and 2 3/3s. So 12 damage. Again, just absurd. It scales insanely well. Also, 4/3 trample for 3 mana. Like, have we even seen that on a Magic card before?
Not at that cost, I don't think anywhere close. Like,
it's good all on its own.
Yeah,
we had 4/3s for 4 mana for a while, and that was a thing. They even had to have drawbacks back in the day for a while to be 4 mana 4/3s.
Like
this is
2 mana 2/2 haste is fine. 2/3 death touch for 2 is really good.
3/3 trampler for 3 is pretty common.
3/3 trampler for 3 is 4/3 trample for 3 is absurd.
I'm glad this is on a list because I didn't want to list like every single adversary because they're all bananas in their own unique ways. I think the blue one kind of came out a little weird, but whatever. Primal Adversary is just like, this is just a giant hammer of pain. And the more you put in the pain tokens comes out the pain train. And see, there's all sorts of metaphors there. It just means kill your opponent. It just means crush their will to live. With
I think they're all very good. And like you, I didn't want to put a ton on them. So I just picked the one that I thought was the best. And this is the one I ended up with. And it's super good.
It's crazy good. And let me tell you, we're talking about wolves. It's the werewolf set. You would hope that the werewolf cards in the set are good enough to talk about and be fun and interesting and cool and neat. And I've definitely played enough with this one to confirm that I've had a lot of fun and enjoyment playing around Arlen the Pack's Hope. It's an interesting, really interesting Planeswalker. This card is really unique. I haven't played with any Planeswalker that kind of works the way that she does in how you want to play with her, as it were. We'll get to it in a second. Yep. Point is, this thing's covered in words, so let's get to it. It's a green, red, 2 generic mana for a 4 loyalty mythic legendary Planeswalker. Arlen, of course, with Daybound, which means if a player casts no spells during their own turn, it becomes night next turn. It has a +1 until your next turn. You may cast creature spells as though they had flash, and each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. And -3, you create 2 2/2 green wolf creature tokens, which is great. 4 mana, make 2/2 tokens. Awesome. But when she flips over and you do get to Nightbound, it says, well, if a player casts at least 2 spells during their own turn, it becomes day next turn, of course. For +2 loyalty, it adds a red and a green mana. And for 0 until end of turn, she becomes a 5/5 werewolf creature with trample, indestructible, and haste. So she makes the mana to play the 2 spells to flip her. She is a 5/5 trampling monster who's very, very scary when you need her to be. And if you can get enough counters on her and you flip her back over, you can make some more wolves. Being able to flip back and forth from the day mode to the night mode and how that works, and they flip over in the day mode, so you get to +1 on their turn. You get to play creatures. Like, it's been a trip just trying to figure out exactly what to do with this Planeswalker at any given time.
Yeah, the flash and the extra mana let you change to Daybound and Nightbound kind of on your own terms.
Right.
The other abilities of turning into a werewolf and making werewolves also allow you to sort of control what kind of game you want to play, whether it's a go wide game or a go tall kind of game. Very interesting, intricate Planeswalker that is not, I wouldn't say specific to an archetype. Like, all of these abilities work in any archetype. However, they are very geared towards supporting the werewolf strategy in particular. And I think it's just a very well designed Magic card.
Yeah, it's going to be really great and constructed with like the card that says anytime a wolf does damage to an opponent, draw a card. Like Gruul having that sort of a draw mechanic just built into its aggro cards is just going to be so much fun. Very
It
much
is.
looking forward to it.
I can confirm playing the werewolf deck has been absolutely terrific, and making the wolves that has Tovalar, I think was his name, so it makes enough wolves for Tovalar to flip. But we're getting there. We're getting there. You don't know. I don't know what's on people's list. I just
What are
know
we even talking?
the
about?
werewolf deck was fun. Let's move on. All right. We went to number 3. Ruben, what's number 3?
My number 3, I think, is a good Magic card. That's not why it's on my list. It's on my list because it's named Hostile.
Ah.
Hostile is a land that says tap, add a colorless mana to your mana pool, and pay a colorless and tap and sacrifice a creature. Put a soul counter on Hostile. Then if there are 3 or more soul counters on it, remove those counters, transform it, then untap it, activate only as a sorcery. And then on the back, it's named Creeping In because it's creeping in. It's a black colored artifact creature horror construct. It's a 3/7. Whenever Creeping In attacks, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of creature cards exiled with Creeping In. And it also has pay 4 generic mana. Creeping In phases out.
Why? What? This is
why
like
not?
this is a Robo Rosewater construction that was like set to pun. They set it to pun and hit go, and they made this weirdo 3/7. Why is it a 3/7? Why does it have a giant butt? I don't get it. Is this about the horror house disappears? Like what?
It's a haunted house. It's impossible to kill. I don't know if 3/7 has a specific horror
I was like
nomenclature happening.
Right. It doesn't add up to 13 or whatever. I guess 4 generic mana Creeping In phases out plus 3 plus 7 is 14. So I got nothing, man.
I like it, Ruben. That's, the flavor is your shtick. I'm excited with you.
Thank you.
Evan can pout. It's fine.
Evan can pound dirt. Evan can go stay at the not pun name.
Pound sand, shall I?
That's right.
What I love about this card is that it is a colorless way to sacrifice creatures.
Yeah.
Sorcery speed, but if you actually look right now, there's not a ton of great ways to sacrifice creatures in standard, particularly if you're not in certain colors. So if you're like, I really want to do this cool interaction, I need to sacrifice something, this is there. Unfortunately, it's a mythic, which is just kind of weird. But again, it's a very weird mythic ability in that you're sacrificing creatures to your lands, and then you have a 3/7 that phases out, because that still doesn't make any sense to me.
Whatever. This and the Phoenix would be a cool combo. Like all you have to do is like play the Phoenix, attack with the Phoenix, sack the Phoenix, say go, bring the Phoenix back.
The premium targets for this in limited are going to be the decayed tokens or the 1/1 little soldiery things. I would be way higher on this if it wasn't sorcery speed, so that way you could do it in response to removal. But without that, it's going to be kind of borderline playable with token synergies. But all in all, it's still a pretty sweet card.
It's mostly harmless, right? Like at worst, maybe you get some value out of it. But like if your 9/8 mana base on your limited deck is sudden 8/8 and this thing, like okay.
I feel like it's going to make the cut in every limited deck.
It's got to have tokens because you can't do it at instant speed. So like blue-black control with 10 creatures does not want this in any shape or form. You just don't have enough creatures to sacrifice.
Yeah.
And a lot of black decks, less so in this format with the decayed tokens, but a lot of, black control-y cards just don't have enough.
It's true. Nargirl, what's number 3?
Mine is the one that we were talking about earlier for that super fun werewolves. Oh, wait. I think I might be looking at 2.
Is it? Your number 3?
I'm wrong. My 3 is higher.
Your 3 is higher.
3 is higher. Sorry.
Cool. No problem. That means we get to talk about my number 3. This is a card I briefly mentioned at one point. This card is like it's a joke. Like I get, it's one of those. It's cute. It's like they were like, hey, we're going to make an Innistrad set. They're like, you remember Champion of the Parish from Innistrad? It's time to make Champion of the Parish. Get it? Do you get it? See, at least this pun is not only sweet, but mother of God, this card is amazing. This card is super duper powerful. This card is easily good enough in historic decks. This card is one of the scariest 1-drops I will face in standard or historic. because everything you do after you untap with it makes this thing bigger and scarier. Champion of the Perished is a black mana for a 1/1 rare zombie that says whenever another zombie enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And I know it's just that, except that stupid adversary is making 3 bodies when he enters the battlefield, and then all the other things like Diregraph Colossus is making tokens that triggers this thing. Like, it is just madness how this thing gets out. Like Lazotep Reaver makes 2 zombie tokens, like it makes a zombie token in itself.
Crypt Breaker makes a zombie token every turn.
Yep, with the cards discard.
Even the counter spells make it in limited. Even the counter spell just makes a zombie for no stinking reason.
I'll just startle your opponent's creature and
make
a zombie bird that makes a zombie.
Yeah. There's a card that exiles a card and makes a zombie at instant speed. I got somebody with that one too. I was just like, this card is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, the Champion of the Parish, the white version, obviously insane in the human strategy. The fact that we get to have a pun and also get to get this in a zombie archetype for standard and historic and maybe other formats as well is super cool.
It is super cool. I love this card. Not only is it a cool callback, not only is it a fun pun, but it's also a really cool creature that makes an archetype sink. And I just, sing. Hopefully not sink.
Sing.
No, not sink.
Makes your opponent sink.
There you go. Right into the marsh.
That's right.
Moving here to number 2. Nerd Girl, what is your number 2?
So my number 2 is a really fun addition to any of the new werewolf decks, but it's also just insane and limited. It just is very, very powerful and leaves a lasting effect on the board if answered right away, which is what I like my Bombs Unlimited to do. And that's the Tovalar's Huntsman? Tovalar's? Is that close?
Yeah, Tovalar.
Great. It is a 6 mana for green for a 6/6 human werewolf. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 green wolf tokens with Daybound.
Oh, are we talking about Tovalar's Huntmaster? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And then if you manage to turn it to night, then it turns into a 7/7, which, a small increase. But now it has the whenever it enters battlefield. So if it is night when you cast it, you get this as well. Or attacks create 2 1/1 wolf tokens, which is just a lot of tokens. And then you can fight them for 4 mana. Granted, it can't fight itself because it says another wolf. But with any other wolves, you're likely to be having ones that are much bigger than the 2/2s that you're generating. And I love the idea that you could fight off one of the 2/2s to kill off one of their small things to make it so that they can't reasonably block your 7/7 in any meaningful way. And yeah, it's just a huge, huge beater. Having 10 or 11 power for 6 mana is spread across 3 bodies.
Grave Titan and green is just crazy. And you flip it over and it's better than Grave Titan because it's a 6/6 now with that stupid fight ability, which is unbelievable. Like, my
7/7.
Yeah, 7/7.
7/7 rather. Yeah, it's even better than the 6/6. It's a 7/7.
Right.
It's like, my God, it's crazy.
If you flip this thing, you never have to flip it back because now you're just going to fight. And I mean, worst case scenario, it's 10 power, 10 toughness across 3 bodies for 6 mana.
That's insane.
Worst case scenario.
Worst.
The upside on this card is insane. It's very cool.
Yeah, this card is super sweet. I've found that it's a little too expensive, I think, for standard, maybe 1 or 2 of in the werewolf decks, but just because 6 mana is 6 mana. But you can't deny how insanely the board presence just changes as soon as this card hits the board. It's nuts. Card is great. All right. Ruben, what's number 2?
I've been looking forward to my number 2 since Evan said something a little bit earlier in this episode. I think so. Traditionally, number 2's gotten into about a Magic card with one of my co-hosts because I'm about to say something that's going to upset you both. I have the best of the adversaries at my number 2, and neither of you put them on your list. And Evan called this one weird. My number 2 is Spectral Adversary. Spectral Adversary is a colorless and a blue spirit 2/1 flash flying. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay a blue any number of times. When you pay the cost 1 or more times, put that many +1/+1 counters on Spectral Adversary, then up to that many other target artifacts, creatures, or enchantments phase out. This card is unbelievable. This card is ridiculous. 2 mana, 4 mana, 6 mana, off collected company in the spirits deck, fading out mostly prison effects, phasing out blockers without having to deal with indestructible, without having to deal with any other chicanery. It has flash by itself. It has fly by itself. It does all of the things that you want to sort of stick and dab with in the kind of the spirit deck, limited, in standard, and in modern. This card is insane. And 2 and 2, I think, is the big deal. Like, I love the werewolf. I love the zombie. They're more expensive. The white adversary, very good.
It's 2 and 2.
It pumps your team, and it's 2 and 2.
Right.
But it needs to stay on the board. This doesn't even need to stay on the board. This does what it's doing. It does all of the things I need it to do. I love this card.
It's a good Magic card.
It's good.
Like, in terms of what it does, it's cool because it's versatile, right? It's cool because it doesn't just sit there and go, here's what you need to do. You play a bunch of creatures and you put mana to me and swing. Yeah, I get that. But like, being able to phase out your stuff in response to removal, being able to phase out their stuff so they can't block. Like, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can slice and dice how this card is good. I understand how it's good in that way, but it's also weird because, again, it doesn't sort of tell you what you're supposed to do with it. It's like, you got to really get creative here in terms of what are you actually phasing out? When are you phasing it out? Do you phase out yours or theirs in response to whatever? It's like, that's really cool gameplay. I think it's a neat card. I like the design.
I agree that it's got a pretty high ceiling, but it also has a pretty low floor, which is why I don't think it's one of the more powerful of the adversaries. It's not going to be consistent, and it's going to, especially in constructed, it's going to, fluctuate wildly based on what your opponent is bringing to the table, whether or not it has any relevance at all. But I mean, it's still a great card. I think the entire adversary cycle is really fun and very strong.
Yeah, I'm curious. I feel like, maybe this at 1 mana at 1 blue any number of times was just way too good, and maybe 2 mana
that would be way too good,
right? And 2 mana feels like it's been held back a little bit, but it's still cool when you pull it off for 6 mana, which is kind of neat. I can dig it. All right, let's move on here to my number 2. This card is ridiculous. This card is ridiculous. Like, this card is like, I couldn't believe it when I read this card. I was like, are you serious? Like, we've seen board wipes before, Lord knows, all sorts, all kinds, slice and dicing, the crippling chill stuff where you choose creature types and blah 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 blah. Whatever, man. We've seen giant effects like a massacre worm that kill things and then you get bonuses off them, whatever. But never have we seen a piece of black removal that scales to any number that you want, that then gives you super huge bonuses when your stuff dies, and when their stuff dies, that you gain in life. When your stuff dies, they lose life. The Meat Hook Massacre is just it's a hell of a Magic card. This card's absolutely insane. It's 2 black and X for a mythic legendary enchantment. Buckle up. When the Meat Hook Massacre enters the battlefield, each creature gets -X until end of turn. And now from here on, whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. And whenever a creature an opponent control dies, you gain 1 life, which means you can have a gigantic mess of triggers happen when this first gets on the board. And now this stupid ability is just going to follow you around till the end of the game, or they'll just play another one to wipe the board again and then get another set of triggers. Like, this card is crazy good for any control deck. I have been wrecked by it, and I love it.
Yeah, you didn't even mention, so this is my number 3.
Nice.
And you also didn't even mention that there's an interaction of bouncing the dang thing and then just replaying it that way. So it's a board wipe that like you can do again by itself without actually needing another one. And so you just have you can have so many of them. And it just offers more recurring value. Is so crazy in limited and constructed. I'm excited to see what this card does, but I'm sure I will be thoroughly annoyed with it by the end of the before rotation.
2 years from now, we're like, God, please leave.
Yeah.
Right. Nerd Girl, you said that this was one of the most go wide formats in limited that you'd seen. Lots of human tokens, all these decayed zombies. This card doesn't need to cost 1 million mana in order for it to just end the game on the spot.
So it's wider and the creatures are all smaller. Even the bombs are 3/3s or something very similar. There is not a lot of super tall interactions that we have here. And like I said, we have a lot of bounce mechanics in the format, so it's gonna suck.
Yeah.
This is one of, I think I only gave 4 or 5 out of 5s for the limited set review, and this is one of them.
This card is amazing. And I love the image, the hand things there. Like it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which
I
is
don't.
also incredible. It's
Yeah,
gross. Great.
This is Halloween Horror Nights. This is we got the jack-o'-lanterns, we got a lot of headless horsemen going on. This one's the PG-13 haunted house.
Exactly.
We got going on here.
It's just a hand. That's all. It's not bloody. It's not gross. Doesn't have bugs in it. It's just a hand.
Yeah.
It's fine. Moving here to number 1. I share my number 1 with, I'm guessing, Rube, which is cool. So Nerd Girl, tell us about your number 1.
All right. So my number 1 is, it's not as impactful on the board as some of the other like 5s. But again, there's only like 5 5s in this whole format. There was nothing that just straight ends the game. But the one that I decided for my number 1 is something that's very, very difficult to deal with and will absolutely end games. And that is the Mask of Gristlebrand. Holy smokes, is this card a bomb? Again, it's not coming into play as a 7/7, but also your opponent can't really remove the dang thing. It makes all of your decayed tokens insane. You just hit them for 2 in the air. They can't do anything about it. And then you pay that 2 life that you gained. You just kind of wash that to draw 2 cards. If your opponent can't kill single thing in response to equip, you're just going to be gaining cards forever. I had this on one of the little crappy 2/1s that whenever it deals damage, whenever it attacks, it deals a damage. The little vampire.
Nice.
So I was gaining 3, and then they have to like spend premium removal on all these little dirtily dudes, because similar to the talisman that we saw in the last set, it makes your bad things insanely good that replace themselves, and they're evasive. God, there's just nothing that I splashed this card for 2 black, which is not something I've ever done or recommend you do in limited, but I played 2 Evolving Wilds and I was like, I'm doing this. This is happening.
I can't beat this card in limited. I've played against it multiple times. You don't win. You just like you either have that disenchant white guy by chance, you have the most insane removal ever, and they just don't draw any threats, because if this hit connects with a threat and then they pay the life and they draw the cards, game's over. Like you're just not going to win that race.
Yeah, there's a red 1 mana common that says an attacking creature gets +2/+2 or destroy target artifact. And I think that card is almost always going to be the +2/+2, but you can put it in decks because it can handle specifically Mask of Gristlebrand. Like I don't think there are any other artifacts really that you are like, I can't possibly beat that card, and I'm terrified of any deck of that color because of that card. Mask of Gristlebrand is that card.
It's funny. Yeah. I tried to play with this in Constructed because, when I got completely destroyed by Unlimited, that to me goes, hey, let's try to build a deck with this thing. It's weirdly, the 6 mana to play and equip is just like a bridge too far. Like by the time you skip your 3rd turn, and then you kind of skip your next turn, and then you kind of have to have your stuff die because it's just not enough just to give it flying and lifelink. Oftentimes in Constructed, when they have the good answers, they have the good removal, they'll kill it in response to equipping, and then you've put 6 mana into equipping nothing at that point. So it's rough in that format, but it's also really interesting to me when I find cards, or we'll find cards that are like just bananas. You'll splash double colors and limited because it's so crazy, but in Constructed, it's just the numbers are not the right ones to get it where you need it to be.
Yeah.
This is neat.
Definitely picking up a lot of Return to Natures as well for this format for this card. I think it's just hands down one of the best cards in the format for limited.
But it's not Dream Trawler, so
no.
At least we can answer it.
Yes.
If only we could discard a card to give it hexproof. Then it'd be fair.
Yeah, that'd be super fair. Well, look, for Ruben and I's number 1, this card is crazy. This card is so stupid. I couldn't believe this card. This card is so dumb that by the time I figured out, like, mother of God, this thing is crazy. I'm playing 4 of it. I'm rocking it. And then my opponent killed it. And I was like, wait, there's another ability on this card? Wait, there's a second? There's a bunch of other Texas things does? Oh my God. Ruben, tell us about Moonveil Regent.
Yeah. What doesn't this card do? 3 colorless and a red gets you a 4/4 flying dragon. 4 mana gets you a 4/4 flyer.
Not even 2 red, just 1 red.
Right. 3 colorless and a red. Talk about splashing. Whenever you cast a spell,
you
you may discard your hand. If you do, draw a card for each of that spell's colors. When Moonveil Regent dies, it deals X damage to any target, or X is the number of colors among permanents you control. Like, you could have weakened several of the words on this card and it would still be insane, right?
Yes.
Like, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you must discard your hand,
Right?
Like, and then it would still be bananas, and it would, this card is unreasonably good. It's good in mono red, it's good in 5 color, it's good everywhere.
This card says Hellbent. If you've played a spell this turn, draw a card, and you just keep doing that. It's not even like that weird this triggers once a turn crap that they try to put on other creatures. No. You just go bananas when you're Hellbent until you just draw a land, and then, oh gosh, we have to stop now until we draw more stuff. Right. I can't, in the mono red deck, it's 4 mana. That's the magical mana. You can't play a 5 mana spell in red deck wins. You can play a 4 mana top of your curve, makes every spell thereafter awesome.
Yeah. And there's like a blue-red dragons deck with Gazaleth Prismari and Goldspan Dragon now. This card asks nothing and gives so much to you that it's spectacular. I thought this was a misprint or a troll. When I read it wrong. Or I read it wrong. Yeah. Or someone was like, ha ha, here's the joke about how Wizards is making cards too good, right? This card couldn't possibly be real, and yet here we are.
Yeah, this card with, like, our top end of red dragons right now is just insane. And right now, just after rotation, these cards are the best they're going to be, and they are insanely good as is. So you get your aggro decks, shuffle them up.
Yeah, this card is just $10 right now. If we actually get constructed playback, I can imagine that's going to go up. You need a play set of this card, period. I mean, if you want to play constructed Magic in the next probably 2 years, you need to know that this card exists, know that people are playing with it. Expressive Iteration with no hand is just unbelievable. Damn, this card is crazy.
And I want to commend Wizards because they know where their bread is buttered. They've made some insane angels. They've made some insane dragons. They've made some insane zombies. They made some werewolves that are insane. Like, we don't have these weird corner case, like, disconnected from the flavor things. All of the cards that we are like, this card's insane, are also the cards that a brand new person is going to be like, OMG, my favorite, right?
Absolutely.
So they know exactly what they're doing. Well done on making the right cards the best cards.
This is a really good set. I think it underwhelmed me a little bit at first, but as I've played it, as I've played with it, as I built decks with it, and again, as I've experienced a format that doesn't have Eldraine or Ikoria on my throat, I'm loving it. It's really great. Yeah. And that was our top 10 Innistrad Midnight Hunt cards. You'll see them on the screen right now. If you're a review, take a look at my list, Nerd Girl's list, Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about. And we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Ruben.
Ow.
He was waiting to do that. As we move to our final slide, I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com and AltarSleeves.com, my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl, and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online on Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mikes subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.